All right. And it is so much fun to see so many faces here. Really appreciate you being there. If you didn't hear me, I'd love to see where you're joining us from in the chat. And we really welcome you to this first Friday entrepreneurship call with K-State Research and Extension. The purpose of these calls is to increase the local community's knowledge about the experts, education, and today the economic resources that are available to help small businesses and entrepreneurs and the towns that love those businesses. Businesses cannot succeed without a good, strong, healthy, vibrant community around them. We're going to encourage partner sharing. So if there's something that you want to share, we hope that we'll have plenty of time. But I do have 3 programs prompted to share today because I saw 3 K-State programs that I wanted all of you to know about. And so they'll be joining us too. So without further ado, we're going to get right to our program. And I'd like to you to get to know Dustin Gale, who's the program manager for Community Service Tax Credits Program, which provides opportunities for private, nonprofit organizations and public healthcare entities to improve their ability to undertake major capital campaigns. I'm so pleased you're all here to join us. Thank you. Take it away, Dustin.
Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen so you can see my PowerPoint. Can everyone see it? Perfect. Yes. So today I'm here to talk about the Community Service Tax Credit Program. So for those that have their camera on, show of hands if you've ever heard of that program before. Perfect. So this program has been around since about 1994. The categories have pretty much remained the same since then. So you have like your community service, your healthcare services, and your crime prevention and youth apprenticeship and job training are 2 categories that are, I wouldn't say used a lot, but they're definitely eligible categories if you're interested or have projects that fit in that scope. So the whole purpose of CSP is to help organizations with their capital campaigns, equipment purchases, or any major renovations. In 2019, under community service, nonprofit daycares are always eligible, but I want to stress that we have now specified that nonprofit daycares are eligible, and with the nonprofits, that includes building renovations, equipment, training materials, and like playground pieces to it for the daycare. Since we've actually specified that in 2019, I think we've funded roughly around 7 nonprofit daycares throughout the state of Kansas. And we've set aside $1 million strictly for nonprofit daycares. So if you have a nonprofit daycare, I definitely encourage you to reach out to me directly so we can discuss that and how we can make CSP work for your organization. There are 2 different percentages as far as tax credits, which we'll go into later as far as how that works exactly. So if you're in a rural community with 15,000 or less in population, that's a 70% tax credit back on the donation. If you're in a community that has more than 15,000, so example like Topeka, then you would be a 50% tax credit. Now, however, there's an exception to that rule. If you're in Johnson County, then no matter what, you are 50% tax credit due to the rule that was put in place in 1994. Every year we have about 4.1 million allocated for CSP, and that is going to include, so that $1 million is going to come from that for the nonprofit daycares. So I think one of the common questions we get is the difference between the tax credit and the tax deduction. So obviously there's a huge difference between that. So with the tax credits, it's a direct reduction from your final state tax obligation. And then with the bonus to that, on the federal side, you can deduct the difference. If you itemize and you do your deductions, you can make the deduction on your federal side, which we will go over, I believe, on the next slide. One of the biggest benefits to the program is that CSP is refundable. So that means if you have less tax obligation than what your donation was, then that difference will be refunded to you, which again, I have another example for you as well. The tax credits are only eligible for those that have a Kansas tax income liability. So if for whatever reason there is someone out of state that wants to donate, and maybe they have kids that live within Kansas that pay Kansas state taxes, they are allowed to transfer those to their kids. However, those are not refundable. Those will carry up to 5 years, and it'll just kind of roll over to the next year as far as what's available for your tax credits. So definitely keep that in mind. Let me omit a few more real quick. So here's kind of the example. So I think the idea of CSP is that it benefits the organization with their capital campaigns or their purchases, but it's also a huge incentive for the donors. So as an example, say John Smith makes a $1,000 donation to your project. Your organization is at a 70% tax credit, meaning you have a population of 15,000 or less. That donor will get $700 back in tax credits. Now let's say that donor has a $500 Kansas tax liability at the end of the year. That would mean you would take that $700 tax credit, would wipe out that $500 that is owed to the state. And then in return, that donor would then get a $200 refund. So essentially, if you look at it, after you do the donation versus the tax credit, the donor is really only donating, 30% if you're a 70% tax credit or a 50% donation based off, all the calculations. So the eligible people to contribute are going to be anyone with a Kansas tax liability. So that's going to be your LLCs, S corps, sole proprietors, any individuals of the state of Kansas. So me, you, mom and pop shops, or your pastor. And then you also have your banks, savings, and trust companies that are paying and subject to annual tax on net income. Eligible contributions, we are going to make some adjustments to this because obviously the times have changed a lot since 1994, especially with online payments. We have, a lot of flexibility with the state program, but we want to make sure that it's within the guidelines as well. So the minimum donation for this program is $250. That can come via, cash, stocks and bonds, personal property, real estate donations, payroll deductions, and materials or labor on the project. One of the common questions we get asked within, the last 4 or 5 years was PayPal, credit cards, and Venmo and stuff like that. Those are eligible. They just aren't defined in the guidelines yet. I hope to have those redefined in the guidelines so it's more specified. But as long as you have proof of that payment, then they are eligible for donations or eligible for the tax credits. So the idea, so with CSP, I try to keep everything as simple as possible. Let me exit out of my share screen 1 second so you can actually see me. Am I good? Perfect. Yeah. So with CSP, the overall program, it's fairly simple. Obviously, if you're awarded, there's another grantee session that will kind of go over the ins and outs and how you claim those tax credits for your donors. One of the biggest things I want to stress right now is if you have a pen and paper, please write this down. The application period will open up on March 1, 2022, and that will close at the end of April, so April 31st of 2022. We will make announcements. At least the plan is to make announcements mid-June. Obviously, there's a lot of factors in that. And then that start period for the 18 months that you have to sell tax credits would be from July 1 of 2022 to December 31st, 2023. If you go to kansascommerce.gov/CSP, on the very bottom of the page, you'll see additional resources. Currently, right now, the guidelines from last year are posted. However, we are updating that, but I do want to point you to page 11 in those guidelines. That is going to be the attachments that you'll need for the application. That will not change. So if you're planning on submitting an application, I definitely encourage you to start collecting those items. So you have those for your application and you're not submitting last minute. And then I believe it's page 9 within the application, within the guidelines as well. It specifies as far as what we're looking at in the application and how we're actually scoring the application. So as you're writing that, I definitely encourage you to look at that to make sure that you're meeting the format that we're looking for. I believe, I mean, that's a lot of CSP is most of the time, you know, when we talk about what the program is, I like to see is, will your project actually fit within the program? So if anyone has any projects that they're curious about within their organization to see if they would fit, I definitely encourage you to maybe unmute and maybe ask some questions so we can see if we make it work. If you do have any general questions about CSP, then this is your time as well to ask.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here because we have a question already from Carl Pratt. Would a nonprofit organization like a foundation or economic development group working to build and acquire or renovate a building to be rented to private, private for-profit daycare businesses to lease space within that building qualify for this program?
So who's going to own the space would be the question that I would come up with first. Is it still going to be that nonprofit the foundation that's going to own the space as a lease?
That would be the
intent,
yeah.
Yeah, so as long as the kicker though, as long as your organization still owns the building, then things could be done a little bit differently. Now, if you were to renovate and sell, then there's questions that we're going to have to look at too. But in the scope of you guys still owning the building, then yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and Catherine, the address for that is actually, let me just, like I have it on my slide. Let me just pull that back up real quick.
Yes, and in answer to somebody else's questions, these slides will be available on our website. Well, and of course well, anyway, I guess the slides themselves are available on our website that you've just seen.
Yeah, so right here, this is going to be on my contact information. This is my email address, my phone number, and then this is going to be the website for CSP. This will be the website that you will utilize for all the information, and where you'll also see the application link when that goes live. You'll just hit the apply here button. It'll take you straight to the application and you'll create your account. So www.kansascommerce.gov/CSP. Any other questions?
And Pat just put that into the chat too. Thank you, Pat.
And I mean, if you guys, as kind of examples of different types of projects that we've had over the years. So some of the ones, you know, at least in Topeka, that I can kind of go over.
Do you see, Dustin, do you see Peggy's question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, would a 501c3 qualify if they have both community service events and programs as well as rent space for events and repurpose theater? Based off, I mean, I guess I would need more of a defined scope of what the project is, but I would say currently as the way that's written now, yes. But in order to, you know, actually define that, I would need a little bit more information. But just some, you know, types of projects that we've had in the past. Obviously, nonprofit daycares has kind of been the big push most recently. And then you have like Discovery Center in Topeka and Manhattan have been recipients. The Cosmosphere in Wichita has been a recipient, and that was more for remote learning activities for rural high schools. So they have an opportunity to utilize the Cosmosphere, you know, sphere. And then you have, like with hospitals, you always have equipment purchases with hospitals. So I mean, CSP, as far as the type of project, it's very broad. So it's hard just to define that, you know, this is the only thing that's eligible, because there's a lot of different projects that could fit within CSP. So the best thing, if you have questions if it's going to fit, that's when you would just reach out to me and we can see how we can make it work, or if we can make it work. Obviously, the end goal is to see how we can make it work. I'm not a person that likes to say no, unless you know, there's a lot of red flag there. But I will always be able to work with you as much as possible.
So Katie has a question specifically about hospitals, if you can see it. I'm the executive director of a 501c3 that supports a county hospital. The county hospital is also a nonprofit government entity. If we are interested in tax credits for hospital equipment, who would be the best applicant, the hospital or the nonprofit that supports it?
So hospitals have a little bit different rules. So yes, nonprofits typically are the applicant, but hospitals, they can apply on their own behalf. So the county would just apply as the applicant.
Do you see Katie's question? Does this program tax credit apply to privilege tax?
Yes.
Catherine, you unmuted. Do you have a question? And I don't mean to call you out, but
That me?
yeah.
Know where I am.
Oh, that's all right. I'll mute you if you don't have a question. There we go. Is there a limit on the refundable tax? If you don't owe any Kansas tax, will you receive 70% of your donation back as a cash refund?
Correct. There's nothing in the statute that limits the amount of the refund. The statute states that whatever the difference is between your tax obligation and your tax credit will then be refunded unless if it's transferred, then obviously the rules change. But currently there's nothing in the statute that prevents limits on refunds.
Wonderful.
And I think that's one of the biggest perks. So I will say, every year there's always going to be an organization that may struggle to get donations, which unfortunately it's common. So we probably have maybe 1 or 2 a year that really struggle. So we do look at reallocation, around month 14th, 15th of the program. So that would be around August of 2023 for this current next round. When we talk about reallocation, that's kind of shifting dollars away from, or tax credits away from those organizations at a certain percentage and moving them over to organizations that are being successful. The idea around CSP is that when those tax credits, are expended, we have to make sure that they're utilized within those 18 months because we can't roll those tax credits into the next round. So our goal as an organization is to make sure all those tax credits are claimed at the state level. That way the organization's benefiting and the donors are benefiting from the project as well.
Okay, so there's a couple of questions here. One is a reiteration of what I believe you said. The minimum tax credit is $250. Is there a maximum credit one can receive? And I heard you say no.
Yes, so there is no maximum credit. I will say, like, every organization does it differently. I always encourage you to maybe reach out to multiple people within the community, just get more interest into the project. Some organizations have 100 donors, some may only have 3 or 4. Really, that's up to you. Obviously, the 3 or 4 is less work on my end because I don't have to go into the system and prove it all the time. But I always encourage as many as possible, just because I think it gets more buy-in in the project.
Boy, and my background, I've spent 30 years in nonprofit, and people are so afraid of fundraising, but fundraising is, as you say, a really good way to generate interest and buy-in and note, investment in your program, because lots of people want you to succeed. Tamisha wants to know, so I'm in the process of finishing up paperwork for my nonprofit. It's called the Child Care Improvement and Accessibility Fund. If a building needing renovations to be turned into a center were given or sold to the nonprofit, could the nonprofit apply for renovations to the building?
The short answer to that is yes.
Okay. And the long answer is contact Dustin for more information.
Yeah, contact me and we'll definitely go on the ins and outs of that and how we can make that work.
To clarify, if accepted into this next round of the program, only the donations we received between July of 2022 and December 31st of 2023 would qualify for the credits. Nothing received prior to that date or after that date will qualify. The reason I ask is that we might have another project starting the fundraising process before this period, but would love to be able to include the CSP program into our overall fundraising efforts.
Yeah, so the donation would obviously have to be, post dated on July 1 or after. Unfortunately, we can't do donations made prior to that because you're not technically an approved organization. and the time period for, this next round doesn't actually start until July 1. So anything before that would then be ineligible. And on that topic, I do want to talk about the end of the year. So, if this is the same way, so as long as it's postmarked by December 31st, 2022 or 23, then that tax credit will apply to that tax year. So as long as it's postmarked by December 31st, 2022, they will still receive a tax credit certificate and a certificate number for their 2022 taxes that they filed in 2023.
So Dustin, if Carl wants to get pledges before that date, with the idea that the tax credit is a possibility but not a promise, then the payment is the real trigger for the date. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So that was one of the other pieces I was going to talk about as far as the pledges. So within the application stuff, we do require you guys to go out and get pledges. That does not mean full-on commitments. I want to specify that. So the concept for pledges with us is saying, hey, we're going out to potential donors saying we have an opportunity to get this, tax credits for this program. Are you guys interested in making pledges at some point for the program? Just because they don't make a donation doesn't mean you can't move that money to someone else. It's just saying we have someone that's potentially committed to these funds. Because again, it rolls back to the idea of we want to make sure all the tax credits are being claimed and that none of them go to waste. So the way the application is written, because we've kind of tweaked it because of COVID, and we're not going to change it because obviously COVID is still around. And some people are still a little leery of making donations, not nearly as many as it was in 2020, 21. But so the scoring system, it doesn't really, I guess, it's not as spread out on that section. But I definitely encourage you to get as many donation pledges as possible, because sometimes just those 10 points to 5 points can make your application, from, top 15 to maybe, top 30 or top below 30, because the program itself is very competitive. So you may have, obviously it varies from year to year. So last year we had 55 applications. We funded about 26. The year before that we had, I believe it was 37 applications and we funded 25. So it kind of varies. Our goal is to fund as many organizations as possible. So if you apply and we look at it, and we do go to make awards, it is possible that we may say, hey, instead of giving you the full 250, we may only give you $197,000 in tax credits. This way we can fund more organizations. And the other idea behind that is if we're allowed to reallocate, then we can reallocate to everyone, because the max award for anyone is $250,000. So if you're at that, we can't reallocate any funds to you.
So Katie wants to know about the audit requirement, and it's true, audits are very expensive for nonprofit daycare centers. Would a nonprofit center who has other assurances be able to apply by submitting those audit substitution processes?
Yes. And then I think one of the other questions sometimes we get about that is if you are awarded, if you have over $100,000 in tax credits, there is something in our program called agreed upon procedures, which is basically an audit of the actual CSP tax credits. There's still a lot of confusion with that, as people always think it's the audit of the organization. When when that final report for that agreed upon procedures is due, we are strictly only looking at the CSP tax credits to make sure that they're being utilized properly and that they're being stored, properly, and all the expenses were done properly. So it's something we try to define all the time, which I do get questions about it every year about it, because it's one of those things that aren't really due until 3 years down the road, because you have the final report and then the following year. So 2020, let me work on my dates. So 2020 into 2024 or into 2023 is when is that right? No, 24, I was right the first time. Sorry, too many programs and too many years. 2024 is when that agreed upon procedures would be due. So we always get a lot of questions about that one.
I'm glad she asked that. That was a great question. David Dukart wants to know, have these credits always been refundable? Or is this
The
a change?
state tax credits, yeah, the state tax credits have always been refundable since 1994.
Wow, okay. Can a repurposed youth-based community garden that is being turned into a learning laboratory qualify for small business buildings and improvements such as a vegetable stand and a mini neighborhood gathering place?
Yes, we had a similar project. Oh, I forget where it was. It was back in 2020. It was more farming that had the kind of ecosystem in the rising beds for veterans. And that was kind of one of the nonprofits to get them back into that field as they're kind of leaving the service to kind of get them experienced. But yeah, that it would definitely be eligible.
Very good. Good questions. Really good questions. One of the things that I think this call does very well is you can see Dustin now. He's not scary. You know, feel very comfortable calling him up and asking his questions. I teach grant writing courses, and I used to think as a beginner that this was some mystery, that, you know, it was a pass-fail thing. But Dustin's goal is to get really good projects funded. And to that end, he wants to make you successful. And so your conversations ahead of time will give him better applications, save you a lot of time. If you don't qualify, then why spend all that time?
And then
Okay.
are there any other questions?
One more. I
Okay.
assume the question is, what about ADA restrooms added to an existing campaign?
I don't see a problem. I guess I'm confused as far as the total scope of the project. Is that
Yeah.
only the type of the project? So I think there's still a lot of things that are undefined there to really give you an answer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we don't focus on ADA. We actually support it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like there's this, if the project is just ADA bathrooms for the nonprofit, then yes. But I feel like there may be more to that.
Yeah.
So definitely reach out to people to find that.
Great. Great. Okay. So I'm seeing a slowdown on questions. I don't want to cut off anybody quickly because I think we still have plenty of time. But today, don't everybody close your computers, because I have 3 different programs that I think are very applicable to entrepreneurship and to building your communities. And I see Sammy Gleason from the land of Kansas on. And Sammy, why don't you share? If you still have more questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and Dustin will monitor those and answer them as best he can. So Sammy, take it away.
Here we go. Good morning and happy Friday. I am Sammy Gleason with the From the Land of Kansas program. I wanted to share my screen so you knew what our website looked like here. Let's minimize this so you don't see me. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Good, thanks. From the Land of Kansas, if you're not familiar with it, it is the state's trademark program designed to promote and celebrate agriculture experiences and products grown, raised, or produced in the state of Kansas. The From the Land of Kansas brand makes it easier for people to find and support Kansas-made products and Kansas-based businesses. Today, I'm going to share with you our farmers market workshops that we have coming up. And if you want to learn more about it, you'll just go to farmers markets at the top of our page and hit farmers market regional workshops. And here's the page. You'll scroll down and you can register. The 2022 Farmers Market Direct to Consumer Workshops will be held January 31st through February 4th. The cost to attend is just $5. And that helps you get your scales certified. So that's why there's a little bit of a cost there, and you'll learn so much. A little bit, here is the dates and topics of the Lunch and Learn. It's from noon to 1, except for on Friday, it's from 8:30 to 1, a little bit longer. Also, if you want to download a flyer or an agenda to share with your friends or your office, you can download those here as well and print them. I'll share with you, here is our flyer that you could print off and put up in your business. And then here is the agenda. And this agenda goes into more detail. It tells you who's speaking, about what topics. So we'll have food safety. Adam Inman, he's with the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and he'll talk on food safety. Kansas Value Added Food Labs, Karen Blakesley, and you can go on and look at all the other speakers that we'll have on during that week. Do you have any questions, or would you like me to explain the workshops in a little bit more detail? We hold farmers market workshops every year, especially around this time of year. It's our education and outreach time, and they're usually in person. But with COVID, we've went to a virtual environment so we can reach more people. And last year, everyone loved it that they could attend and they didn't have to drive anywhere, especially this time of year. It's icy and stormy, so they loved that they could virtually attend, and then also they will be recorded as well.
Very good. Are there any certifications that can be obtained as a result of attending?
No, you can get your scale certification, but not any like a certification, for your farmer's market. Is that what you're asking?
I don't know. Yes, for your farmer's market.
Yeah, there's no certification for that. It's knowledgeable. So we're hoping you can get your scale certified, and then you're learning about food safety, Kansas Value Added Foods. It's just basically just for learning for you. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay, and I put the website in there. Thank you, Sammy. I appreciate it.
And you could email me at sammy.gleason@ks.gov if you have any other questions. And then also go to that our from Atlanta, Kansas website and just click on farmers markets and then go down to the workshops.
Very good.
Thank you.
And Sammy, feel free to put your email into the chat.
Okay, I will do that along with the website. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, and we have two more programs, one from the Rural Grocery Initiative and one from Kansas Women Managing the Farm. So Robin Reed, would you share?
Yes, thank you, Nancy. So I'm Robin Reed. I'm an extension farm economist with the Department of Agricultural Economics. But the program I'm talking to you about today is actually a very big partnership of a lot of different organizations and farm women across the state. So the Women Managing the Farm Conference has actually been running for about 17 years now. And it started as smaller regional meetings for largely ladies that were absentee landowners. So those of you that might not be as familiar in ag, if you think about it, a lot of times when farmland transitions, it's owned by the husband and wife, usually as sole proprietors. And a lot of times, by demographics, the husband is the first to pass away. And then the wife is put in the position of managing this farm ground by herself largely. So that's how this conference started, is really targeting that demographic and providing information to help those ladies. But since then, it has really ballooned into covering all kinds of different topics for all kinds of women and men participants that come to it in all different areas of agriculture. So this is held annually in Manhattan, Kansas, at the Hilton Garden Inn every year. We were virtual last year. Our theme for this year is coming back together again. And we are very aware of what's going on right now, and we have the whole conference center reserved and are very conscientious about keeping people spaced out during this face-to-face conference. So I'm not going to go through the whole agenda, but I just wanted to point out on our website that all the information is here and registration is currently open for this. We start our conference off with some pre-conference sessions. And the ones that are really popular are QuickBooks for farm record keeping. A lot of our ladies do the book work for the operation, usually help manage different parts of the operation as well. But these are very popular to learn how to do that accounting system for your farm or your ranch. And then we have a drone session this year to just introduce people to drone technology. But as I said, I won't go through the whole agenda. We have 3 big keynote speakers that'll be talking about farm transition, agricultural advocacy, and then the current environment of commodity prices are high, but fertilizer prices and chemical prices are very uncertain if we're going to get them when we need them, and extremely high price. So we're in a very risky agricultural environment right now, even though we have higher prices. So we're going to be talking about that in a keynote. And then the beauty of the conference is there are 5 different breakout session times that have different topics each time. So again, this conference is for anybody involved in agriculture, and there are so many different options of sessions to go to that there is definitely a topic for any kind of question that any producer or farm wife or ag industry career woman might have. So I will take some questions on this as well. But again, just to emphasize, this is a big partnership in putting this conference on between K-State Research and Extension, Farm Bureau, Kansas Wheat, Kansas Corn, Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the list goes on. So this is a huge partnership across the state that comes together to put on this conference every year. You can register here. I just want to point out January 12th, next week, Wednesday, is when the room block is closed and when the conference rate does go up. So
there's a question, Robin, in the chat. So there's a registration fee of $150 if you before next week, but then additional, is it additional for each session, or are those if you only want to go to those sessions?
Okay, great question. So the regular conference rate is $150 right now because we're in early bird prices. If you want to do a pre-conference session, it is an additional $25. And we really reserve those pre-conference sessions for people attending the conference. So I know it's very popular for those QuickBooks sessions to fill up quite quickly. So we won't open them up to anyone not attending the conference. There are other QuickBooks trainings going on around the state typically that you can get into.
Good, yes, including resources on this call like SBDC and so forth.
Yeah, I will say on the QuickBooks, so it is unique to farm and ranch operations. So it is taught by one of our Kansas Farm Management Association fieldmen, and you get a chart of accounts that is specific to an ag operation. So it is really geared towards making sure your operation has QuickBooks for farm and ranch. And so that it is a lot more extensive than maybe a normal QuickBooks training.
Yes, and Robin, this might pertain to this. The question is, are these resources available to access other times of the year or only during the conference?
So another great question. We typically will take the slide sets or that kind of information that our speakers provide us and put them up on our website afterwards. So on the agenda here after the conference, you can hopefully maybe a couple weeks after the conference go in, and these will be clickable links that you can see the material that was presented at each of those. Unfortunately, we don't have the capacity to record each of these sessions and put them online. We really want people to come to the conference itself because the education is great, but the networking between participants is extremely valuable as well. And we actually even have a session for networking that we try to categorize the participants and then get them to know other women across the state in the same area they're in. So
to your point about the QuickBooks being such a popular course and it being specific to farmers, is that a course that Kansas Farm Management offers at other times besides this conference?
It is, yes. And if there's a want in an area to put on a QuickBooks training, I would talk to your local extension agent and we can try to get that set up with them. I will say all of our fieldmen are doing taxes up until mid-April. So I know it's a good time of year to do those, but they are extremely busy. So typically a lot more of those are done in the summer.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. Okay, I want to make sure, I don't want to cut off. Today is the last day to sign up for the regional conference that starts next week. And I'm not sure what, does that relate to managing the farm? Oh, through the Conservation District and Extension Office. It's a similar program.
So the one she is talking about is our Women in Agricultural Risk Management series. And it's a little confusing because I also run that program. Nancy asked me to talk about women managing the farm today, but I'll just take a minute to mention that too, if you don't mind, Nancy.
No.
So this is a 4-part series that's going to be starting next week, January 12th. And it's a hybrid delivery. So myself and one of our farm analysts will be broadcasting from campus. And there are 36 local sites across the state where you can go to partake in that program. This way, it's a little more COVID friendly, that you're just still in your local community partaking in that. And I will drop the link in the chat to that program. We really want to get people registered today, but we will take registrations up until it starts next week, Wednesday, for that one. And that covers crop insurance, enterprise budgeting, crop marketing, and government program payments.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Good question, or good comment, Kelly. I was unaware of the difference. So thank you, Robin, for being here. And Ryle Carver with the Rural Grocery Initiative is going to tell us about rural grocery succession planning. Thanks for joining us, Ryle.
Great. Thank you so much, Nancy. I am also going to share my screen and just talk through. I have 2 programs I wanted to highlight that are happening in the coming weeks and months. So I guess before I get into this, my name's Ryle Carver. I am a program leader with the Rural Grocery Initiative. So our staff are rural grocery extension specialists. So we work across the state. We're housed within K-State Research and Extension. And you may be familiar with some of our rural grocery succession planning work that we've done in the past. Actually, this time last year, I joined this call to share a little bit about what we called our Keeping Groceries Alive webinar series. That was an 8-part webinar series, which you can see on our website. We are, that session happened, it was an 8-week session of webinars. And this year we have decided to spread that out a little bit. And so we are launching monthly webinars that will focus on rural grocery succession planning. And these really are meant to dive in a little deeper than what we did last year. We heard some great feedback on how relevant the information was. And so we've decided to kind of expand what we're doing related to rural grocery succession planning. We will have monthly webinars. They're on the 3rd Thursday of every month. Our first webinar is January 20th at 1:30. You can follow this link. I'll also put it in the chat to sign up. You can sign up for the January webinar and all of the future webinars just to have that on your calendar. And we're looking forward to talking in a little more detail on some specific ownership models that grocers can consider. We're going to talk about ways that sort of community members can be supportive of this process. We'll have lots of examples of rural grocery transitions in Kansas and other Midwestern states. So we hope that you all can join. This is something we found can be helpful for rural grocers themselves, as well as economic developers, community stakeholders, extension professionals. So it's really a broad range of people that we think can benefit. The other thing I wanted to bring up is the Rural Grocery Summit. So the National Rural Grocery Summit is held every other year. And the last time we were going to have this conference was in 2020. We all know how that went. So we are really excited to be convening again this year in June in Wichita. So the dates are June 20th and 21st. And what I want to highlight is that we currently have our call for proposals open. So I just want to share that that is open. We're asking people to submit proposal presentations by February 1st. And we're interested in really a broad range of topics related to rural grocery, rural food access, rural communities. So, please consider if you have done some work in this area, please consider submitting a proposal. And we've got quite a bit of information on our website to talk through some different topics that we're interested in highlighting. So that's really all I wanted to say, just mention a couple of upcoming events. I'll put both of these websites in the chat, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I don't see any questions. Callie says that she's super excited for all of these programs. She just got 3 acres of inner city land to begin an urban farm training school, and I'm blessed to be able to redevelop the agriculture zone in Wyandotte County. So Ryle, does that have any applicability to the work that the, you're gonna have to fill in the blank for the access, rural grocery access work? I know that you were kind of working along with.
Do you mean the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yes. Yes. So the Rural Grocery Initiative is a partner with the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative, which is a public-private partnership with Kansas Health Foundation, Network Kansas, a community development financial institution called IFF, and the Food Trust. And that program provides technical assistance as well as financial assistance. So the goal of that program is to increase access to healthy food in low resource and underserved areas of Kansas. And so yeah, it's all relevant. We definitely have some overlap that some rural grocers have applied for funding through the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative and also attended some of our webinars. So, but the main difference with KHFI is that it is not just rural communities. It is applicable to communities across the state of Kansas that are interested in improving their sort of healthy food retail environment. So if anyone's interested in talking more, I'm happy to connect. I'll put my email in the chat.
Good, because I'm thinking that Callie, thank you for filling in all those blanks that I couldn't come up with in my vocabulary, but I'm thinking that Callie might benefit with this urban farming initiative. There might be something for her in the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think we should connect. I'll put my email in the chat. The biggest stipulation for KHFI is that there has to be some sort of retail component. So sales that are going directly to consumers of grocery items or produce items, healthy food items. So as long as we can make that connection and it's in an applicable area, it could be a good fit.
Okay, so Ryle, don't mute yet. Here's a question that came directly to me. Are community gardens included in these programs? We have an acre plus of land on 3 sites.
Yeah, so
I think you just answered it, but yeah.
A community garden does not usually fit with KHFI because there's not a sales component of the project. So really the goal is for KHFI to support projects that to support sustainable business operations that just need a little help to either renovate or get established or sort of improve their operations to maintain viable.
Fantastic. Good questions, everybody. And I appreciate the opportunity. Callie says, I have a few partner organizations that would benefit. I think part of the benefit of this is we know that you're connected to other people. And so, you know, you're telling your friends about what you see that might apply to them is really helpful. Okay, so it's 10:20. We still have 10 minutes. If anybody is on the call that came prepared to share, please unmute and share whatever you'd like to share in your programming. Really excellent questions today and great participation. I don't see any other sharing. So next month, and I haven't checked to see if she's here. No, I don't think. Next month, Kayla Savage from the Kansas Department of Commerce is going to share on February 4th about rural housing and incentive districts. And they've been doing some training on rural housing incentive districts, and I don't know of any rural community that doesn't have an issue with housing. So I hope that you'll spread the word, help us spread the word about that next month. So I always like to leave a little thought for the day. So our thought for today is from that great philosopher, Amy Poehler, who says, great people do things before they're ready. So go out and create a great Kansas day. And thank you all for joining us. Have a good one.